Live with Dr. Manuel Astruc. He is a member of PALA, but more importantly, he is a mental health professional. And during these times of just uncertainty, and I just feel like every day there's like another thing that comes along that we're navigating, it's really important to have someone like you here to help support and steady the ship that is chaos in my head sometimes. So I would like for you to just kind of introduce yourself and tell the world that's watching all about you and how you got started in like how you went from like the coaching to from the psychiatry to coaching, and how you're managing both of those things right now.
Yeah, so thank you, Catherine. And so I'm primarily a psychiatrist. I've been in psychiatric private practice for going on 20 years. And I've got experience working on inpatient units. Part of my practice includes working with Saratoga County Alcohol Services. And back in 2008, I got very burnt out myself. And as a result of that, I was looking for adding things to my life that helped me to feel better. And one of those things ended up being helping other people, other entrepreneurs who are working at very high levels, high-performing folks who are also hit burnout, and it's causing problems in their ability to function in their work, to work with them to get them back to feeling their best and performing their best.
I mean, so I think that's kind of similar to me. It's like I created like a community that was missing in my life, and I feel like you created a service that you needed yourself as do you consider yourself a high performer, ambitious kind of person that just keeps on going and building, and you need support, right?
Yeah, so that's what I learned. I wish I'd known that better. And I do this for a living, right? But the fact that we know how to help other people doesn't necessarily mean that we take our own advice. But having a community and having that ability to look at myself, and I had fallen into a trap of anytime there was a problem, I just worked harder. And that works for a while, but it's not a sustainable strategy.
Yeah, I mean, so I love this because I think like just in my personal experience, I sometimes felt like on the psychiatry side, you're talking a lot about the past, you're talking about like why you are the way that you are, and you don't necessarily talk about what you need to do to continue or to progress or advance yourself. So I love that you're combining these two things, and you're kind of giving the extra support and accountability and coaching aspect of it, and you're applying it to your business. It's like I think it's so valuable to have someone like you who's well versed and experienced, and that there's a different way that you can do all this.
Yeah. So what I bring to the table, like you said, is I've got my expertise from my training and 20 years of working with individuals. I've got my own personal narrative of having had, burnout and depression and alcoholism and things that I wasn't comfortable talking about. And it wasn't the place to talk about it with patients, obviously, but even within my community, my peers, it wasn't something that I felt comfortable sharing. So it was very, very lonely. And then I'm an entrepreneur. So those are the three pieces that I'm able to bring to the table for these sorts of discussions.
Yeah, and can you talk further about that? Like why is it that we wait until we get to this place of like you've got the experience? I mean, I think that's a lot of it. You've lived life longer, so you have the experience. You feel more comfortable in your own skin with those life experiences. And so something that I kind of struggle with, it's like, I want to pull the wisdom from my elders, right? And say like, I don't want to get to, I don't even know how old you are, but I don't want to get to, I'm 35. I don't want to get to 50 and then be like, oh, now I know better. And let me start doing these things that are going to serve me to live a more happy, fulfilling life. Do we have to go through it to really, reap the rewards of these actionable habits and things that we do to better our mental health and give us more support and just the know-how to navigate the things that come along that will certainly come along my way. It's like, so are you one of those people who's like, you gotta go through it to get to the other side and figure it out as you go? Or is it possible to collaborate and learn from people who have been there, done that, and, start to, do the things that, or not do the things that they did?
No, so it's a great point, and the reality is that you don't have to learn from the School of Hard Knocks. The School of Hard Knocks is a great teacher, but you can also learn from other people's experiences. And what that means is being open to taking in that information. So many times the challenge isn't that we don't have the information, it's that we don't pay attention to it, right? So we all know that it's important to, let's say, sleep and to eat well and to exercise. But the fact that we know we should be doing this, things that are easy to do are also easy not to do many times. So the knowledge is out there, and I'm certainly happy to share that with anyone. But for all of us, and this includes me all the time, there's so much that we just kind of, that doesn't apply to me, right? I'm special. I'm different. This is okay for me to do this. And we don't pay attention to the wisdom that's out there that says, you really need to be intentionally recreating or intentionally recovering to keep performing at a high level. But people have been talking about this for years. It's not new information. It's just, not being the special butterfly that I can do this.
I also think it's, once you're on the other side of it, and I have the experience of just like asking for help. Like that's like super simple thing, right? But I never asked for help. I always was that kind of like of the mindset, like figure it out yourself. There's like, it's like, it's vulnerable to be like, oh, I need help, so come support me. And when we did Palette and we pre-sold memberships to the community, and I was now building this alongside our members, it was transformative. It was like, oh my God, there are people out there that want to be part of this, that want to see me succeed, that want to be part of the growth. And why not ask them to join, And so being on the other side of it and reaping the rewards of being vulnerable, asking for help, sharing experiences, it has just been so amazing. So now I'm like, why doesn't everybody share? Why doesn't everybody share their experience? Why isn't everyone, collaborating and supporting one another? And so I can get frustrated where I'm like, just like you said, it's not new information. It's just getting the word out and helping. I've stolen this from you over the years, helping more people help more people, and the compound interest of kindness and collaborating and support systems. So do you ever get frustrated that it's like you start to feel like a broken record?
No, I think, for me, like the folks that I like to listen to, that share a lot of wisdom, and, my kind of mentors and virtual mentors, they all have the stories and the top 5 things that they almost always talk about. And I can like almost not wait to hear them say it again, because the repetition is helpful. So I don't mind the repeating. I think it's helpful to remind folks of basic wisdoms.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love, surrounding myself with people who eat that up, only because, I am able to advance myself, right? Where it's like, you're the average of like the 5 people you hang out with. And if you're hanging out with people who are positive and collaborative and are getting it and picking up what I'm putting down, it feels good to be reflecting the people around you in a positive way versus, the alternative, the toxic, the manipulative, the competitiveness, and it's why you are very focused on your coaching business, to be working with people who are high level, ambitious entrepreneurs, high achievers.
Right, and there are people who are coachable and want to get to that next level. When you're talking about the 5 people that you hang around with, the average, and so on and so forth. For many of us, the challenge is to be willing to change the folks that we hang with, and it doesn't mean that we leave people behind, but stepping into a tribe of folks who challenge us to think bigger and to hold ourselves more accountable is really pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about this forever because it's been so transformative for me, and I also kind of feel like I had to be in this, place of isolation and kind of figure out like that I needed the support and that it was actually out there. And I think that my biggest like catalyst that forced me into like starting to create that community around myself was becoming a mom. And I'm 1,500 miles away from my family, and that's when I really started to cultivate friends, and that village like mentality of like support and help and no judgment, so, and I kind of felt like and that was like the catalyst for me. I think that's a catalyst for a lot of women or parents, and I want to also discuss like how important that is to have that in your business or in your career on the professional side of it. And, the reason why I created Palette as this like hybrid of, personal and professional development is that, one doesn't really advance without the other. And so many people think on the career side of it, you go and get a career coach, or you go and get a, business coach, or you go and get support with that, and you're leaving a lot on the table. And if you would also just support and invest in yourself, a lot of those conversations that you have to go and deal with on a professional level, they work themselves out because you're naturally just, improved person, you're progressing, you're more confident. And the workforce is changing. And I will absolutely want to hear your take on how this is changing. It must be like so exciting for you to see that, individuals are asking more of their employers to support their personal well-being and more of a holistic life and boundary setting. And, I would imagine your practice is just like booming and busting at the seams with people who are just like eating this content and these services up.
Yeah, the change that's happening is really remarkable and long called for. The ability to ask for what we need and to be in a position where employers are listening to that, because it hasn't always been that way, right? So it's like, here's the job, take it or leave it. If you don't want it, there's someone else who can take your place. And the reality, and I think it comes down to the fact that as an employer, if you want a high performance organization that's delivering value to your customers, to have employees, your team members who are doing well and are not just good at what they do, but they're in a good frame of mind. It doesn't do anything but help you to win in the marketplace when that's what you're cultivating. So the old ways are changing, and people are catching on to some foundational truths that, a good team requires, foundational things like psychological safety, the ability to ask for what you need and to have that be safe.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier said than done too, right? It's like scary to put yourself first. I think like for me personally, I just have been conditioned to like, and as a mom, you put your kids first, you put your relationships first, and, mom comes last. And even in business ownership, right? Like sometimes it's like, the business owner gets paid last. You make sure everyone else is fed and taken care of, and then you take care of yourself. And so it's like, it's a slippery slope as a employer to empower your team to take care of themselves first and then be supportive of that. And then, it is sort of like, I feel like Palette, we've always done this at Palette. It's like, if you need time off, like, you got personal stuff going on, you got to address that first, because then when you show up to work, you're not in a good mood, or you're stressed, you're elsewhere, you're mentally somewhere else. And it's impossible to kind of like be where your feet are, which is what I tell myself all the time. It's like, I need to be present with what I'm doing right now. That's the best use of my time and my mental energy. And it is really easier said than done to literally just ask for what you need. And I think the other part of it is navigating what it is you need, because at the high achievers and the really ambitious, like, again, like myself, I'm such a workaholic. There's sometimes that I'm like, there's nothing really on the agenda to take care of. And I'm like, well, then of course I would just answer emails, or of course I'll go into Palette and check on things, and it's like, no, you have to like slap your wrist and say, do not go to work. You need to rest. You need to relax. You need to you need to breathe.
Right. And it's a good point. So more enlightened with your employees, right? So of course, if you need time off, take it, but then holding ourselves accountable to be living that as well, right? To be the proper example for our employees, our kids, that taking care of ourselves, taking that time to sharpen the saw, to not answer emails, to not fill every waking moment with whatever work we can cram in. That active recovery and time for people and connections is so important.
Yeah, and I also, it's interesting when you start to think about like, well, where did you learn all of the, like for me, I'm always talking about myself, but hopefully it's helpful with people to be like reflective of like what I'm doing wrong. But you learn a lot from in your childhood. And this is something that I'm like realizing, I think just because I have little kids, I'm like, my 7-year-old is watching me work to exhaustion, and it's just like not good for anyone in this situation to witness it. So it's helpful to kind of remind myself that people are watching, little people are watching, and what they learn in these like early years, they go on to impact the rest of their lives.
That's so true, and that's how we learn, right? We learn by watching those around us, and at a young age, there's a big impact from the lessons that we learned from our parents. And the value of hard work is a good lesson to learn, but with boundaries, right? With an off button.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm a work in progress. I have some boundary issues, some codependency issues, and I'm navigating it. And it's like, I'm an all-in kind of person. So I'm like doing all of the things. I'm not sure what exactly is working or what's shifting things around me, but we're just going to keep going.
One of my favorite quotes came from the director of my psychiatric residency program, Dr. John Urbach. And he used to say, we are never finished products, right? So we are always works in product. That's what being human is. And for me, like one of the pillars for us in our lives that really flourish is acknowledging that and learning and relearning and changing our minds about stuff that we used to think, and we think different now. But we're all works in progress.
Yeah, and we're all capable of change. I think that's another thing I have like rewired my brain to believe. It's like, it's not just like a set it and quit it kind of thing. It's like, it's an evolution. You get to change your mind. You get to see things differently as you experience different parts of like seasons of life. And I think it's really cool when things do happen. Like I just, for like just hypothetical, say you went on a family vacation, right? And you're like, things happen and you're like, oh, I'm not going to react in that way because I'm different, I've evolved, and those things and those words and those actions of other people don't impact me the way that they used to be. And that is a really cool feeling. I'm like, I'm growing up. It's really cool.
That's great. The metaphor I use with folks is, you want to be able to learn to draw with more colors, right? More choices open to you with how you're going to handle things. That's great.
Yeah, and then like shifting that over to like work, right? Talking to your boss, talking to your teammates when things you feel like someone's pulling their weight and someone's not. And it's like it all, it's all about relationships, and the stronger that you can substantiate them, and the more trust you can provide within each other, the better off we all are.
The ability to tell the truth, and again, that psychological safety where it's safe to tell the truth, because in a lot of organizations that hasn't been the case.
So talk more about that. Like, what do you mean by psychological? If you're an employer and you've created psychological safety, there is like this revolving door of just openness, authentic communication, and transparency, or with that, there needs to be boundaries too.
Sure. So boundaries are always important, but so for instance, an organization that I heard about recently was Boeing, and the difficulties that they had with their airplanes was based on the fact that it was no longer safe for people to say something's wrong. They were looking at their metrics and their production and what their numbers needed to be, and the culture had changed so that had become more important. And for someone to say, I don't think we're putting safety first, and these areas that I'm not feeling good about, I raise my hand, and people don't want to hear it, right? That's an organization where it has become not safe to talk about things. And everyone's just focused on an outcome that is not safety first. And then there was disasters that happened. So yes, boundaries are important. But for an organization to really flourish, we need to be able to talk about what's really going on. In medical systems, one of the things that would happen was that certain teams did not want to talk about the fact that they'd had problems, right? So problems with outcomes or with infections or with procedures or whatever, because it made them look bad. But then there's no opportunity to learn. Other teams that end up being much more high performing, they are able to look at all the data, tell the truth about it, and say, we're messing up here. Here's an area for improvement. But it comes about because they feel safe that then no one's going to get on their case for messing up what happened. At work, one of the things we want to cultivate is that ability to have candid conversations where we're getting the information and the data that we need from those around us.
Yeah, and then also being able to tell, I think when you create a really great, cohesive, trusting team, sometimes you can have that conversation before, like, you know it's coming, from an employer standpoint, you're like, oh, yeah, we're running late, we're not doing the tasks, we're not doing our thing, we're not showing up, whatever. It's like something's not right. And, if you're working with a person that's like a good person and, they're great, there's something else that's going on, and you need to be able to have that conversation with the person that's giving you security, right? It's like.
And then the other place that it comes up is, if I fall down and break my leg, or I have a heart attack and I call out of work, that's usually not a problem. But if I say I'm not feeling good emotionally, right? I'm calling in sad today. That is not as easy to do, and for many of us and in many organizations. So part of what you're talking about, when you have a relationship with a really good employee, you know them, you trust them, they know you, they trust you, that they can call in and say, I need some time off. Right, I'm not doing good, and I need to step back and get myself together.
And then, what are your thoughts? Are like, sometimes just time off doesn't solve it, right? You need I go back to the all-in extreme person. I'm like, I don't just need time off. I need time off. I need a retreat center. I need one-on-ones with a psychiatrist. I need therapy. I need working out, eating well. So what is your go-to reset or recovery habit cycle?
I mean, for me, I've got some built-in habits that just kind of are what sustain me, and they revolve around, number one, sleep. Sleep is the performance enhancing drug that is so easy to push down in the list of things to do, but maintaining 8 hours of sleep, 7 hours of sleep, 9 hours of sleep, but that's critical for me. Exercise, regular exercise, 5 days a week for me, and the programs that I do are 30 minutes to an hour. It kind of depends, but that regular program helps keep me on track. When we look at things going off the rails, so it's more than just having a hard time waking up, not having energy, and a day or two or a weekend of R&R doesn't refresh you. Those might be then times to start to look at getting into some counseling, some therapy, and things like that. But as our performance goes down and as our head's not in the game, and as it's getting harder to function, it's that hard to function and more distress that I think starts to become the warning bells for burnout. The trio that we talk about is that exhaustion, like you're just always exhausted and you can't really catch up with just a weekend. Number two is you start to lose, your normal attitude, and you get cynical, you get bitter. And lastly is you start to become less effective at work. And those are times for you to start to look at, what's kind of the reset that I need. And sometimes it's just taking a little bit of time off, and sometimes it means making some adjustments in the rest of your life to be able to bolster and support the time and energy that you're putting into work.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a fluid kind of spectrum, like, are you one of those people that you like kind of try to gauge it every day? You wake up and you're like, looking in the mirror, how do I feel today? Or are you probably so good at it now that you can kind of gauge, like, okay, I'm going down this rabbit hole or spiral, or I'm not going to spiral, I'm going to stop and I'm going to take a day off, or I'm going to go to go for a walk around the park or hug a tree, whatever it is that works for you. Or, because I think that's another side effect of like the high achievers. They get go, 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 go. And then the crash is so, even after just a big event, this is something I've experienced. Like you rally to like get to the outcome. You got the outcome. It's great. It's wonderful. You celebrate, hurrah. And then the next day I'm like so depleted, and it's like my energy level just completely drops off. And then I'm frustrated because I'm like, how did I let myself get here again? And the recovery rate is like getting better, but it's like, if I could just have like some sort of like, alert system, and you can start to build that and practice it, right? So that, you do get that alert system to tell you, okay, you're like, you can do this tomorrow, and enough in the day that you've managed to complete.
So I've gotten better at it, but I'm still, not a master at this. But I have a pretty good idea of where my attitude is, and I can listen to myself a little bit. And if I'm starting to have snarky comments that are wanting to come out or actually coming out in places where they don't belong, that's a clue. When I want to hit snooze over and over, that's a clue for me that something's off. When I'm breaking promises to myself, when it's harder and harder to engage and dig in with, some of the difficult work, when I'm, really needing to focus and concentrate, those are clues for me. And a lot of times I don't listen to them. It's like, oh, too bad. Like, suck it up. still gotta get the report out. But I've definitely gotten better. And for all of us, I think the getting more introspective and paying attention, and to recognize our tendency to just drive ourselves, past the point where it's hurting, is one group of us. There's another group that needs to be pushed harder, but I think for many of us, it's really the opposite. It's really, we need to, bank more on active rest and recovery.
Yeah, and I heard someone say this the other day. It's not like a balancing act. It's just well-being, like a holistic outcome of just like feeling, for the most part, okay and good, and maybe even thriving. I mean, that seems to me like the main outcome, right? Is like, I just want to feel like alive and thriving, and I'm just like doing all the things, and it takes time. I'm very impatient too. I'm like, I want that yesterday.
And thriving and flourishing doesn't mean that there's not also, negative stuff that goes on. But it's a state where overall we're kind of have some semblance of serenity and peace, and feel pretty good, and are accepting of where things are at in our lives today.
So I kind of like, with that point, I want to segue to the feelings everyone is having right now are probably the most part not feeling thriving and flourishing, because we are still managing and navigating life with COVID, and the Delta variant, and everyone is short staffed and everyone is at their wits end. I think we're beyond burnout, burnout on the work, but also burnout on just the feelings that, we have to continue to combat this. And that's kind of like how I feel it. It's like, I feel like I'm just still fighting this thing that it just doesn't seem like it's going to go away. And I don't know if what I'm experiencing is like PTSD, but I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do this all over again. So I need you to coach me here. Live coaching from the expert on how do you not just throw your hands up in the air and say, I'm done.
So first off, we want to validate your experience, right? So we start with validation of this sucks, right? So there's aspects of this that truly suck, and then it can be really helpful to dig in a little bit, and that sense of wanting to throw your hands up and just be done. Like, if we can put a name to that emotion, like. So frustration's a good emotion. And what we want to do now is go from, I am frustrated, like that's who I am, to I feel frustrated.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I feel frustrated.
Yeah.
And a little angry. I'm a little like irritated. I don't know. Angry is a really strong word. And I mean, anger is like enraged. I'm not that. I'm just.
No, so it doesn't have to be. So there's a spectrum, right? So enraged is one end and frustrated is another. And there's all sorts of colors of anger, right? So enraged is not necessarily anger. Anger can be, I'm just angry. Yeah. It's okay to be angry.
So do you qualify like frustration under anger?
Usually it's a milder form of anger, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's okay.
It's totally okay. So you validate, you take a step back from, if you're having a feeling, now we can work with a feeling rather than with, I want to run away, or I am this feeling. And for you, it's all about just kind of the re-traumatizing of, here we are again.
Yeah, I mean, the other part of it is like, I know this is not just me, Yeah. I know that like a lot of people are feeling this collective trauma. Maybe they don't realize it, but it's like we're all going through it all over again. And this is the other thing that I think is really important. This is what I tell myself, at least, that it's like, I hope we can learn from like the past and maybe do things a bit differently this go round, be a bit more proactive about things that we can do to like, what is the word? Like, just decrease the impact.
Yeah. And the challenge here is that we don't have any control over that, right?
Well, that is not what I wanted to hear.
So where you have control, right, is within your own attitude that you're cultivating for yourself and how you approach this and the mindset that you have around it. So it'd be great if we could get, everybody to think like we think, or I think, or whatever, but then it would be a kind of a boring world. But rather than focusing on those things that we have zero control over, it's focusing on, that area of influence that I have. So I validate my emotions, I validate my experience, and then I work on, what are the things that I can do or change within myself to help me to cope with what's going on. Acceptance is a huge piece of that. The acceptance of, here we go again, and this doesn't feel good. Fear, there can be fear. Like, I wonder if it's going to be as bad as it was before. We're going to go into lockdowns again. What's going to go on with schools? Melissa in my front office, she had to leave work like 2 times, 3 times last year because one of her kids had a possible exposure and had to lock down at home. So it impacted people in so many different ways that we had zero control over. And what can we control in that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the next thing is to take the action that's gonna help you, right? Or not in a bad way, but just like what's gonna help me and my family and my team get through this, and on an emotional level, aside from just doing the things that we're told and advised to do. And you do have to, again, it kind of comes full circle. You gotta think about yourself and the people that you're responsible for, and think of that first in a way that is not selfish. That's not selfish. That's just like, that is self-care. That's like well-being. And mitigate the risk as much as you can on yourself. So
what can you do, Catherine, to now that you're frustrated and a little angry with what's going on, what are those steps that and they can be actual steps, they can be mental models, working on accepting or whatever, but what do you think are some go-to moves from your low-hanging fruit?
Well, you know what I'm about to say, right? You already know it.
No,
dancing. It solves everything. Moving your body, like getting out of your head and just, like, what are you going to do? There's like so much that I don't have control over, right? But I do have control of like the music, and we can dance it out.
So there's
lots of make you do that right now, but that's definitely a coping mechanism for me to be like, okay. And I also tell myself regularly, like, shit can always be worse.
Yeah. So those are some go-to moves, right? Dancing, music, controlling your access to negative information, right? So we can hang on every next report of what's happening, with the news media or whatever, or we can, spend 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day catching up, put it aside. Our brains are primed incredibly quickly by very small exposures. So here's a study that was done. I might have told you this already, but they were looking at the influence of very small stimuli. So there was an online furniture store, and the researchers had two different loading or landing pages. One landing page had clouds, and then you pushed the button and you went into the virtual furniture store. The other landing page had coins, and you pushed a button and you went into the same furniture store and you did your shopping online. And then as you were leaving, they asked, what's the most important for you in making a furniture buying decision? Is it comfort or is it value? The people who had a momentary exposure to clouds were significantly more likely to say comfort, and the people who had a very momentary exposure to the coins were significantly more likely to say value. Just like that, your brain can get primed with what you're exposing it to. So it's one of the big things is, getting out of toxic, not useful information.
So, I mean, when you're saying all this, I'm thinking like screens and, social media and news feeds that are not actually news feeds.
Exactly. And those things, they're designed really to take your attention and to like get it glued to these things that are priming your brain with most of it is not happy dance music, right?
True. I mean, if more people just danced, I think that we would have a better place. The world would be a better place.
There's actually so much truth to that, Catherine. I mean, if you look at cultures, like ancient cultures and dancing and tribal dancing and drumming was a very common thing in all tribes.
is it cleansing, right? I mean, it's like it cleared your mind and body of the energy that was built up, that shows up as stress.
There's so much. It's community, it's togetherness, it's a shared experience, it's uplifting, it's hypnotic. It really is a community building and safe environment for folks to be in, and it feels good, right?
And I did not tee you up to say all that at the end of this segment, but it sounds to me like this is why you joined Palette, right?
It's a very positive environment for sure.
Yes. Well, I appreciate having your medical backgrounds, data-driven, scientific knowledge to back up what I had just like a feeling I needed. I feel more confident that we're onto something here through collaborations and community building and just the shared resources and just the supporting each other. I mean, why not, right?
That's right. Lift each other up.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here for it. I will forever give you credit for the quote that I use from you all the time, like helping people, help more people, compound interest. It just feels so good. And I credit you to that. So I thank you so much. And we will talk again soon.
Thanks, Catherine.